Well, what do we have here? We have Rick Dhaliwal, who made an appearance on Halford and Brough yesterday to talk everything Vancouver Canucks, and whether or not next week is going to be a big one for this team. Now, y'all know the drill by now. Canucks News Summaries, they've been providing us with the summary for going on to 2 years now. Man, what an amazing Twitter account. I love the runner of this Twitter user because they go out there and summarize a lot of these Canucks news and notes that is shared to us on the radio waves. So big shout out over to Canucks News Summaries. We have a number of different Vancouver Canucks-related names to dive into in today's commentary. Starting out with the latest on Teddy Blueger and Derek Forbort. Rick Dhaliwal says on the Hal Bro Show that it's pretty quiet and that he doesn't sense any urgency with the Canucks right now. The previous regime, with Alvin and Rutherford, they loved Teddy Blueger, but Dhaliwal is unsure what Ryan Johnson and the Sedins think of him. There were whispers that Derek Forbort was going to retire, but Dhaliwal has been told that Forbort will try to continue his career. Now, you know what's really interesting about all this? I just wanted to say this at the very beginning of the Forbort conversation. What an absolute legend this guy is. He had the opportunity to take his money and run. He was a Vancouver Canuck for a season where the Vancouver Canucks were totally washed. And despite the fact that he came on to a team that was trying to reclaim their spot atop the Pacific Division to no avail, he said, yeah, no, I'm okay to stick around. I'll stay in Vancouver, I'll play again. And he only had 2 games played this most recent season, but the fact that he is still willing to try to truck it out and continue playing, that's pretty admirable. Especially when you consider the circumstances that Vancouver sucks. Like, this is a team that nobody in their right minds, especially at the end of their careers, would reasonably look at and say, yeah, I want to go on the last place team in the NHL with locker room issues and guys fighting internally. That sounds like a great place to end my hockey playing career, especially for Derek Forbort, who is a guy out of Minnesota, USA. I feel like the fact that he is an American dude from Minnesota kind of traumatizes Canucks fans a little bit when thinking about players like that. But ultimately, Derek Forbort, if he decides to come back, that'd be a pretty nice addition, veteran leadership-wise, to the Canucks decor. Doesn't seem like he's going to cost a lot of money. Teddy Blueger, he's also in a pretty tough spot. He needs a contract. He was a guy that the Vancouver Canucks could not trade at the trade deadline this most recent season. A lot of that had to do with the fact that Blueger didn't really do all too well at the Olympics, and the fact that his overall sample size heading into the 2026 trade deadline was just not good enough to justify going for. There were a number of teams reportedly involved in the center market, but the Canucks could not take advantage, and Teddy Blueger, as a guy that Vancouver supposedly would have wanted to bring back, it does seem a little crowded now when you think about Pettersson, Rossi, Ratu, and then whomever else you wanted to toss in there, Braden Coots maybe, Teddy Blueger if you decide to give him another spot. I'm not too sure if that's really what the Canucks have in store, but we'll wait and see. It's pretty quiet. Next up, there's a conversation on Danila Klimovich. His agent Dan Milstein will discuss his future with the team after the draft. He is an RFA. Klimovich is a guy the Vancouver Canucks drafted in the second round 5 years ago, and he was taken out of the Belarusian League. Really interesting draft pickup at that spot. Over the years in Abbotsford, he has never really been able to ascend to greater heights. I know a lot of Canucks fans were super optimistic because Klimovich objectively had a high ceiling. It's just we didn't really know if there was a likelihood he would attain it at all. And it doesn't seem like in this version of reality, Klimovich has gotten anywhere near his ceiling. So whether or not his agent and him sit down and come to the conclusion that maybe Klimovich wants to move on, he wants another opportunity with a different AHL club, we will wait and see. It's not like the Vancouver Canucks didn't try with Klimovich, but he's a guy that only had 4 goals in 16 games in the playoffs when Abbotsford won the Calder Cup last year. Doesn't really seem to be a guy progressing in the right direction. Speaking about AHL dudes, there's a conversation to have on Arshdeep Bains. He's on a one-way deal and he will be paid a lot, even if he's in the AHL. Which is awesome for him. We love to see guys actually get paid and get money for what they're doing. He's making $850,000 this season, and if it's a one-way deal, it doesn't matter if he's in Abbotsford, he'll still be making that amount of money. It's guaranteed for him. In regards to Filip Chytil, Dhaliwal says he's not hearing anything negative about Chytil and his health. Brendan Gallagher is in the mix as well. His agent is keeping up with the Canucks, but otherwise it's pretty quiet on the trade talk front. More than one team is interested in Brendan Gallagher. That is quite interesting, if I do say so myself. There's a conversation to have on assistant coaches, brought up by Rick Dhaliwal. The Canucks are looking for a combination of experience and hungry up-and-coming coaches. They are prioritizing people that can teach and manage personalities, the same qualities needed to be the Abbotsford head coach. People will love how clear Manny Malhotra is when he speaks. Turns out the Vancouver Canucks might be looking for guys similar in that mold. And then finally, there is a conversation on the Vancouver Canucks and their budget. Dhaliwal reiterates what Patrick Johnston said earlier this week too. Ownership? They want to spend less. Owners will need to pay for a practice facility, and they're going to have to buy out one of their brothers. They don't need a huge payroll in a rebuild. Money should go to drafting and development. Toronto, for example, they're one of the teams that spends all of their extra funds on player development. All rebuilding teams reduce the cost as the revenue decreases as well. Now, cue the entire conversation that's going to be sparked up from this, talking about how, the Aquilini'S are cheap, this and that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I will say it is reasonable for a team like Vancouver to shell out money into other areas beyond just player management, cap, and all that stuff. We already made videos earlier throughout the month debating this talking point that is circulated on social media as to whether or not the Vancouver Canucks are quote-unquote broke. They're hiring a bunch of new people, and apparently the money that they're being paid isn't really all too high comparative to other NHL coaches and GMs. So with that said, you can debate whether or not that opens the door to a reasonable conversation on whether the Canucks are just willing to spend more or less money than other teams at this point. But based off of what Dhaliwal is saying, the answer should be no. They're a rebuilding team, and rebuilding teams always reduce cost. They understand revenue will go down. They understand that money is not going to be pouring in the same way it had been previously. So this is a chance for them to just kind of cut back, budget a little bit. And if the players or the executives are first to get pay cuts, then I guess that's what we're going to see over the next little while here. I do think it's interesting, though. When this talking point came up, we saw a lot of Canucks fans starting to get worried. The Canucks are never going to learn. They're the same old Canucks. They're not going to be willing to spend any money. And that's going to prevent them from actually making the proper moves to acquire a dead contract or acquire assets they could use in the draft and whatnot, weaponizing their cap space. There were a lot of people concerned as to whether or not Vancouver would actually be willing to do that, if this management and ownership group would allow the team to take on bad contracts because, hey, we can. It's under the salary cap. At the end of the day, ownership still has to pay out those contracts. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this big Canucks news update? Blueger, Klimovich, you've got Arshdeep Bains, Brendan Gallagher, and more. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. This isn't even all of it. There's a second part, but we can focus on this stuff in another video. And bye.